Hello. I wanted to do a show about, well, alarm clocks. Are we waking up in time for this shit show that's continuing through 2020, 2021? It's actually New Year's Eve, the day I'm making this recording. Tomorrow is the beginning of 2022. What a magical year hopefully this will be for all of us. And hopefully we'll be going forward wide awake. But to stay wide awake, we sometimes need alarm calls, don't we, to remind us what we're doing, why we're here, what we're developing ourselves for. We can easily fall back asleep, caught up in the, I was going to say the conundrum of life, in the rat race of life. At the moment we're all having our holidays, our seasonal holidays. So we're taking it easy, seeing family, friends, hopefully out celebrating the new year. Many people have been making their resolutions for the new year. I never do that. I never keep to them anyway. I try to make a resolution every day that I'm going to wake up today. Anyway, alarm clocks are what I think we need. And Ouspensky writes in Search for the Miraculous, a man must literally surround himself with alarm clocks which will prevent him from sleeping. The alarms must be constantly changed. New ones must be continually invented. There is very little chance of a man doing all the work of inventing, winding up and changing all those clocks by himself. It's very difficult to keep oneself awake, get easily distracted, which is why I suppose Gurdjieff wanted everyone to find schools and go and find teachers to prod them and keep them awake. But it's difficult to find these things in this day and age. Thankfully, like I said before, there's other shows out there that deal with the Gurdjieff work. I like to think that my shows kind of help people wake up or find what it is they want. What are these alarm calls? Well, in the Gurdjieff work, he changes the exercises quite a bit. And I know people say, oh, exercises are only for certain people. He only gave them to certain people for that time. But I found myself by doing different exercises over the years, I follow one exercise for a few months and move on to another one. It keeps you on the ball rather than doing mechanical repetition of every day. I do the same thing and try and wake myself up in the same way every day. Well, sometimes that mechanicalness becomes mechanical and I'm not putting in the effort that I should be because it's become mechanical, repetitive. So I have to change my alarm clocks quite a bit. And I have to reread the Gurdjieff writings quite a bit because every time, as I've said before, if you read the book one time and you read it again another time, you get something different every time. And with the Ouspensky work and Raj. And hearing other people discuss the Gurdjieff work or coming together in a small group can help be an alarm call. We should always get something out of whatever we're listening to or being told about or whatever we're reading. There should be something poking you to say, oh yes, that's what I should be doing. Because staying awake is difficult and we get distracted all the time. And Ouspensky reminds us that rules ought to be difficult, unpleasant, uncomfortable, otherwise they would not answer their purpose. Rules are the alarm clocks which awaken the sleeping man. And that's what I'm kind of saying about why I change my exercises quite a bit, otherwise it becomes just mechanical, and I don't want it to be mechanical. I want it to be awakening me and pushing me forward and making me, all my centers, see things in a different way, whether it's mind, body, emotional. But then I found this interesting quote, which is from Views from the Real World. And I remember I work with children quite a bit in my day job, and some children are very awake. So they might, obviously they don't understand what they're doing, but I remember as a child being a bit more conscious than the people that I was around. This sounds really awful, but I used to think a lot of my teachers just didn't know what they were talking about. My peers were just following the rat race way of living and doing things just for an easy life rather than following their conscience and doing what was right. And that happens a lot in this world, and that's definitely asleep people that will ignore what to do that is right and instead just doing something that follows a mechanical path or makes their life a bit easier. when they're not using their conscious to know the difference between right and wrong. But as Gurdjieff writes in Views from the Real World, the only difference between a child and a grown-up is in the mind. All the weaknesses are there, beginning with hunger, with sensitivity, with naivety. There is no difference. The same things are in a child and in a grown-up man. Love, hate, everything. Functions are the same. Receptivity is the same. Equally, they react. Equally, they are given to imaginary fears. And that's one of the big things, isn't it? Falling back into imagination and daydreaming is one of the things that sends us back to sleep. You know, the right use of imagination is to use it for developing yourself. I've done a show on imagination. You know, I suppose one of my favorites is trying to imagine yourself, I don't know, working with the Christ or working with the gods, or doing a meditation where you're linking up with whatever you're into. You know, I know Gurdjieff does an exercise about connecting with Muhammad, with the Christ, with Lama, with Buddha. And he says that all these people have left like a shadow, a cloud over the places where they come from. So the Christ is hovering over Jerusalem, Muhammad's hovering over Mecca, Buddha's over, I think it's Nepal, and the Lama that Gurdjieff is using in his books is over Tibet, and that we can connect with them. But you have to, you know, do this as an exercise, visualize yourself working with them, connecting with them. So visualization with imagination can work well if we're using it in the right kind of exercise. Let me carry on with this quote. So, where was I? Something about imagination, because that's why I went off the tangent. So the same things are in a child and in a grown-up man. Love, hate, everything. Functions are the same, receptivity is the same, equally they react, equally they are given to imaginary fears. In short, there is no difference. The only difference is in the mind. We have more material, more logic than a child. Length of life does not mean maturity. A man may live to 100 and yet remain a child. He may grow tall and be a child, or the same, if we mean by a child one who has no independent logic in his mind. Gosh, I'm coming up against so many adults that I see are still children. And it's worrying because it's these people that are in charge of everything. So by doing this kind of work, we're trying to mature ourselves and become real people, using our conscience and being awake to our consciousness so that we can see what's really going on. But since there's more people asleep and not following that kind of thing, it's very difficult. As Gurdjieff says, we live in a lunatic asylum. Everything's just topsy-turvy. It just shouldn't be the way it is. We could live a much better world in a much better ways if we actually opened up to our consciousness and had people that grew up. A man can be called grown up only from the moment his mind has acquired this quality. Only a grown-up person can derive any benefit from this institute. And he's talking about his prairie in France. A boy or a girl of 8 can be grown up, and a man of 60 can be a child. The institute cannot make people grown up. They have to be grown up before they come to the institute. Grown up, not in their essence, but in their mind. Because our mind plays tricks on us, as we all know. And as children, we're probably, you know, young, innocent beings. And I wonder if too many children were being led rather than thinking for themselves. And as we know, with most schools, they're teaching people what to think rather than thinking for themselves. And this kind of work is about thinking for yourself and using your intelligence, your intellect in the right way. Bringing it all together in a whole to be part of the cosmic order and be part of the ongoing harmonious ongoing reciprocal maintenance of the universe. We don't want to be mechanical. We want to be part of the real universe that's going on, that's working towards the divine. His endlessness, as Gurdjieff calls him. We're all working to be a part of the ongoing harmonious reciprocal maintenance. When we're not attuned to that, when we're not working with that, then we are like lost little children that can't think for ourselves, which is why we have to work on ourselves. We have to be conscious. And as Gurdjieff writes in Views from the Real World, before all else, you must think of yourself. You must try to lift yourself. You must be an egoist. Egoism is the first station on the way to altruism, to Christianity, but it must be egoism for a good purpose. And this is very difficult. And it is, because most egoists are about themselves, not the whole of everything and being part of the universe. He goes on to say, actually he says this in Life is Real, only then may a man be a good altruist to his nearest, when at times he can be a complete egoist. In order to be able to help people, one must first learn to help oneself. So we have to make our own alarm clocks to wake ourselves up to do this work, to be doing the right thing, and to be part of everything, and to wake up, which is the most difficult thing sometimes. But once we start becoming aware of it, everything starts making sense. When you start waking up, you suddenly see all the falsities, all the naivety of how the rest of the people are running this world, and the egoists who aren't being altruistic, aren't doing it for the good. You know, if you have to, pray for help. Gurdjieff says that praying is a really important thing, but we must do it with real intention, really mean what we're looking for. And he actually says, well, this was in C.S. Knott, he says, Amen means God help us. It is far older than the Jews. Everything is in this word, all the scowl from Merd to God. In the Buddhist religion, there is a similar word, feel that reverberate in you. If we open our mouths as though to say ah and pronounce amen or slowly close into a M or N, the whole scale of sound is there. Amen. We're saying these prayers, but really meaning it, meaning what we want to do. You know, I often pray to help me wake up, give me that alarm call. Because Gurdjieff says that a perfected man is superior to the angels. The idea being that men, perfected to a certain degree of reason, are cells in the mind of God. Angels are his emotions. There is more joy in heaven over one man perfected by his own efforts than in 99 naturally evolved angels. And that again is from C.S. Knott. And he continues saying, what he, Gurdjieff, had said about angels and devils had been most vanity. But if you have real cunning, you can make them your slaves. Angel can do one thing, devil can do all. Man must have real cunning in old English sense. So we have to be cunning in doing all this. And sometimes we need an alarm call to remind us what to do, rather than falling prey to doing the same old, same old. We have to be cunning in our prayers, in our development, in our work, cunning in life, but at the same time be altruistic. So we're going forward into 2022. Hopefully this year will be the year that the truth will come out about everything, and that people will develop themselves to a point that we can make this a better world for one and all. Or maybe it is just a change over time. You know, I do agree with a lot of people, this is the end of a certain cycle. I think that's why we had the alarm calls from people like Gurdjieff, Steiner, Rowick, and so on, to tell us, you know, this is our last chance to evolve. So let's take these alarm calls and wake up.